The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the speakers or authors and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by the producers of this broadcast. The material herein is for entertainment purposes only.
Welcome to another episode of Afterlife Radio. I'm Kalila Smith, coming to you live from New Orleans, and my co-host is Billy Roberts, coming to you live from Cornwall in the UK, in England. Welcome, Billy. How you doing today?
Really well today. And it's nice to be back and nice to talk to you again.
Great to talk to you always. We're going to be talking about a variety of different things that would concern a medium and their mediumistic skills and different situations that one might get into that one might have questions about. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then later, Billy's going to give us some ideas about what to do for budding mediums. First, we want to talk a little bit about, we like to start the show off a little bit about the realm of paranormal, because there's two different realms that a medium is going to do. A medium can be working with loved ones, giving messages in the form of a gallery or a private reading. But lots of times mediums are used on paranormal investigations. And they're used in conjunction with a variety of other means of trying to communicate with spirit. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And that brings me to, Billy, ghost boxes. You might be familiar with it as a Tesla device where they're using white noise or other type of, sometimes they even have a hacked radio with a lot of, it's skipping channels very, very quickly. And they feel that the voices can come through there. I've seen them used. I've been on investigations. I've been on television shows where they were used. And the jury is still out. I'm not convinced that they're very effective. What are your thoughts?
I'm very, very skeptical about these devices. I've seen them many times when I've taken part in TV programs. And sometimes, you're forced into a situation where you have to say because of the position as a medium, I'm forced to say, well, yeah, I can hear something. And later on, I've said to my wife, Dolly, I didn't hear anything. I can't hear the same things they're hearing. Some things like a EVP, for an example, if you leave a tape on a loop, you can pick a residue of sounds up. But even that I'm a bit skeptical about. But, don't forget, before television and radio were invented, we never thought it possible for us to receive such transmissions through the airwaves. Images and sounds only become a reality once they make contact with the mediums of a TV or radio. So, people were obviously skeptical when they were invented. But working on the same premise, mediums receive communication. Now, it's difficult, really. You know as well as I do that people wanting to be a medium doesn't necessarily make you a medium. And these apparatus, these sophisticated devices work for some people, but not for others. And if you're mediumistically inclined, then you don't really need those things. But I've seen different ones. We call them the spirit box in the UK. And the most convincing one was the EVP that the lady who actually created it. I used to know she was a writer, and she had some extraordinary tapes containing voices from her dead son, which I thought were quite interesting. But, I'm still skeptical.
Well, I think it can happen. I mean, I think there have been some proven situations. I watched a movie a while back, and I'm sure you're familiar with it because it happened in the UK. It was called the Skull Experiment.
Yeah.
Where they actually visited a gentleman in Italy who used reel-to-reel tape, magnetic tape, to receive voices and so forth. And they said they were accurate. I mean, I think it's possible because I think it is proven that spirits can come through. They use energy. I mean, without a doubt, they have used energy, and they can manipulate electricity in the form of electrical equipment and so forth. So I think it's possible. I'm very skeptical when it's so immediate and so prevalent. Like someone goes out and in the first hour, they've got all of this EVP that's perfect.
Yeah,
when,
exactly.
In most cases, it's very hit and miss. That's what I always found. It was very, very hit and miss.
Well, I mean,
and you could spend hours and days trying to get something and get nothing. So I think in my opinion, I think it's very difficult for the other side to come through in that capacity, but I know it is possible.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's not something that interests me. I'm interested in the different aspects of the paranormal, but using these devices has never really interested me. EMF meters, for one, non-contact thermometers, and all these different things these paranormal enthusiasts use. It might suit them. It's it can be quite entertaining, but and a lot of people in the UK, as in America, there are hundreds and thousands of paranormal groups starting up all over the place. But it's not. It's an emotional minefield. We've said this before, and it does lend itself to certain people. I hate to say the word cranks or gullible people. Not all gullible, but you do get a lot of people in this line of business that are very naive, is a better word. So you do have to tread with great caution. And well, I certainly have learned over too long in the tooth now to accept everything that's presented to me. And you're the same, because we've had conversations in the past. And I think that we do have to tread with caution. It's interesting. It's fascinating. And as you've just said, it possibly does work, and you've seen it. And I've seen interesting things, but that's about it for me.
Well, yeah, and I think also a lot of people don't realize that with that white noise and also with the hacked radios, and that's I don't know if you have that over in the UK, but in the States we have the hacked radio. They take an AM radio and they make it to where it's jumping channels. So you get little blips of people talking, and it's blip, 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 blip. And then every now and then you'll hear a word come through, which is very, very random. And I think, well, I know, and as do you, that, our subconscious minds, if you want to create something badly enough, your subconscious mind will start making you hear what you want to hear. Exactly. I think in a lot of these cases. Yeah. And, and it is the way our bodies and our minds and our spirits are all set up. If you want something badly enough, your subconscious mind will certainly accommodate and make sure that you get an experience, but it's not always accurate. I think with devices, as with anything, if you're using what's so-called scientific experiment with scientific equipment, it's got to be done in a controlled environment, and you have to be able to duplicate it. Don't you agree?
Yeah, exactly. But in psychology, there are two things. There's pareidolia and apophenia. We've all had the experience of being in the shower, and you think you can hear music or somebody calling your name, and you turn the shower off, you don't hear it, it's gone. It's a sound that seems to materialize, and a lot of people attribute that to spirit intervention, but it's a psychological phenomenon that occurs quite naturally in most people, like apophenia. is when you see random shapes or shapes in random designs on curtains and on carpets. People see the face of Jesus or the face of a loved one. And that's again, it's a natural phenomenon, a neurological thing that takes place in the brain that we're all capable of. And you'll always see what you want to see. And, before my mother died, she was a medium. She couldn't understand why I was 40 when she died. And already I was showing signs of being a miserable old skeptic. And she couldn't understand why I was pouring disdain on a lot of things. And I think it's because, when you travel a lot with mediumship and you see what's around the corner, all the different, there are thousands and thousands of mediums, you start to think, well, what's this all about? So you make a detailed analysis of all these different things, and at the end of the day, you draw your own conclusions, because I've noticed since I met you in 2003, was it?
Yes, I think so, yes.
Yeah, and I noticed a change in you, different, you were professional then, but you've got other things to your credentials now. You tend to perceive things in a different way, and your mediumship has come on leaps and bounds. So you can't tell me you're not a little bit skeptical of a lot of the things you see, because I think you are. And I think healthy.
Oh, absolutely. I think, absolutely. I think it's human nature, and your left brain is going to always jump in and say, wait, did that really happen? And yes, I've definitely questioned things, especially in the beginning when I started doing platform work.
I think also because when you do it yourself, when you've done a demonstration and it's been a good demonstration, without a shadow of a doubt, you've received communication from disembodied souls, the spirit world. There's an adrenaline rush that passes through your body. And when you haven't had a good demonstration, you tend to be quite downhearted at the end of it and a little bit miserable. And when people say to you, you were brilliant, and you weren't, it just goes over your head because you weren't good. It didn't work. And that brings me to another point. Does mediumship or communication with the so-called dead, does it always work? I don't think so.
That's a good question. That's a great question. I tell you what, let's take a little commercial break, and we come back. We'll talk about the instances when it does not always work, and what might happen. Yep. We'll be right back.
Submitted for your approval. New Orleans. Seductive, magical, mysterious, and haunted. There is no place on this earth with as much ghost and vampire activity as New Orleans. Imagine, if you will, a tour that takes you to sites in the French Quarter of actual documented hauntings. The Haunted History Tour is just that tour. Every day, every night, all year round. This tour has been featured on ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN, and it's available to you. Are there ghosts and vampires in the French Quarter? Find out by taking the tour that everyone is talking about, the Haunted History Tour. For more information, call Haunted History Tours at 861-2727. That's 861-2727. This is not a Halloween spook house. This is real.
And we're back. So, Billy, let's talk about a little bit about when and why would mediumship not work in certain instances.
Well, I've come to this conclusion that when I first started working on the platform and then in theatres, and I knew people had great expectations. The more known you are, the better known you are, the more people expect you to produce their family. And I began to think, well, my mother, for an example, although she was a medium, she never communicates with me. She did once, and I won't bore you with the story, but it was a necessary communication. And I think that if your family are hanging around you all the time, then it's going to be a very boring life in the spirit world. And they do continue to grow. They continue to grow, not physically, but spiritually, transcendentally. And it's a learning process for them as much as it is for you. Like your daughter, for an example, she would grow on spiritually. She would expand. And you know that because she would bring her feelings to you. And, what she's learned, she'll bring to you. Not always audibly, but she'll pass it on to you and help you all that she can, as you helped her. And I get this with people. I wouldn't expect my grandmother. I never knew my grandmother. She was German. And I wouldn't expect her to be sitting down in the corner, rocking on a chair, waiting for me to talk to her. So I realized that mediumship or communication has to be experimental. It doesn't always work. And a medium, generally speaking, is only as good as the audience or congregation they work with. If you have a bad environment, a negative audience, then I don't care how good the medium is, it's just not going to work. And you can't make it work. You can't force it. Mediums are damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they're brilliant, a skeptic will always pull them down. And if they don't work well, everybody will bring them down. So it's a very difficult profession to be in. So that's my opinion anyway. What's yours?
Right. No, I completely agree on that. Sometimes, and I've had, especially in the early days of doing platform work, which we call gallery work here in the States. Yeah. And in the very early days, I would see things, or I would be out there in front of people, and things would start coming to me from spirit. And I was always afraid, that it would sound silly. And so I was always kind of, insecure. And lots of times I felt insecure, and it was my own ego making me feel insecure. Mm. And I learned to just go with what I'm seeing, feeling, smelling, tasting, so forth, and just blurt it out. And like I did in Cornwall, there was specifically a child that had come through and nobody owned it. And I'm just like, I know what I see. I know that he's here. And then I think later on somebody validated it. And that's usually what happens. But yeah, there are times if you're in a situation, and I've had it happen personally, mainly in situations with table tipping and physical situations where we were doing physical mediumship. And always someone there that doesn't really believe in it and pulling that energy down. And it definitely has an effect, without a doubt.
It's bound to it, doesn't it? I mean, you can almost, luckily, I'm very short-sighted, so I'm not put off by the way they look. But you get a lot of people who sit in an auditorium. They'll have their arms folded, and they'll give you a certain look that tells you it's not going to work unless you have something really spectacular for that person. And then I will brave it and go to them with a message. But when we do workshops in my place, when people come along and they want to develop the gift that they think they have, first of all, it's holistic, my approach. So I develop their presentation before their ability, the way they present their mediumship, the way we put them in situations of make-believe, pretending they're well-known mediums with an audience and get them to work. But it's presentation more than anything else. Because, I've seen lots of mediums over the years, and they've been brilliant mediums, but boring speakers. And it doesn't matter how good you are. If you don't have a personality and you don't capture the audience, then the audience will start to talk amongst themselves. They'll lose interest and they will not hear what you've got to say to them. So personality is everything. And this is another thing why you went down so well. Two things, your personality and also the fact that you are American, completely different to what we're used to here. So people still talk about you, as I said to you before.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so awesome. Yeah. And stage presence is a lot. And, that's one of the things that you either have it or you don't. And some people get it. I mean, as a child, studying stage performing, dance lessons, all of these things you take as children, that is kind of where that kind of set the mark for me to understand how to do it, but also, doing tours. And I used to sing, and you were a musician. So you understand being up on stage and the value of being entertaining. If you cannot speak and you're monotone and you're not speaking, you're boring people, you're going to lose them. Absolutely. And they won't get the message. They won't be interested in the message. You have to interject some personality in there. So it's a balancing act, because you want to be realistic, but at the same time, you have to be entertaining.
That's exactly. And the other thing that I've been interested in is mediums. There seems to be some correlation between your your astrological status and who you are as a medium.
Really?
What's your star sign, Kalila?
Well, my sun's sign, I'm a Gemini, and I'm actually a double Gemini.
Right.
I am a double Gemini because I have a sun sign in Gemini, and my rising sign is also in Gemini, and have a moon in Leo.
Right. Geminis are talkers. They're communicators, and they do make good mediums. The only thing with Gemini women particularly is lack of confidence initially. They dither. They can't make quick decisions. They ponder too much. I'm not saying you're always like that, but that is one of the negative sides to a Gemini. Now, generally speaking, the most sensitive ones on the astrological calendar are Gemini, Cancerians, Scorpios, and Pisceans. Now, Pisceans are one on their own. They like to be noticed. Oh, Leos are good as well, because Leos are performers. They like to stand in front of people. They like to be noticed. They can be quite vain, but they're quite diligent and probably make good mediums and good healers as well. So I found there's some correlation between all this. The older mediums, the veteran mediums, were often Arians. Now, Arians are thinkers. They're very deep, but they're not communicators. So with an Arian medium, initially, you've got to refine their performance, get them to develop their skills communicating with people. Taurians are very similar, but Taurians rush into the china shop like a bull, and they can be quite strong and quite formidable. So you've got all these different signs, and I found earlier on, I do something called Esoteric Astrology, which has got nothing to do with traditional astrology. For an example, what is your date? You were born in June, obviously.
June 21st.
So you're actually numerically influenced by the sign of Pisces. Now, Piscean people, as I said, are communicators, and they're very sharp. And the combination of Pisces and Gemini in you show me something quite special. You're quite a complex character who normally will not wear your heart on the sleeve. So you're very apprehensive. You're good with people. You like to go into situations because you're good in any social climate. So you can adjust. But you're like a butterfly sometimes. You'll flit from one thing to another.
Absolutely.
You hurt very easily. But the fact that you're influenced numerically by the sign of Pisces tells me also you entered a new cycle around the 18th of March this year. And every March you'll find will be significant to you, either in a positive way or negative way. So you have a lot to look forward to. And that's the way it works sometimes with me. When people send me a sample of handwriting, I'll make a detailed analysis of the handwriting and in relation to their dates of birth. And it reveals an awful lot about the individual. Some people will never be mediums. It doesn't matter how clear the information is that they receive. You know instinctively that they just haven't got it to work with people.
That's true. Yeah, you have to be able to work with people. for
Yeah.
sure. I think another aspect that comes in as well, something I've noticed anyway, long before I was working professionally as a psychic or a medium, I studied to be a therapist. And one of the things that I had to do was, before I could see clients, was to work on myself. I had to do a lot of inner work on me. And that's something very important. And I see silent mediums who have not done that kind of work, and they tend to, some of their issues start bleeding over. And I think it's very good for anybody that's going to be doing this type of work to make sure you work on yourself first.
Exactly.
And make
Yeah.
sure that you don't have that kind of transference going on, to where your issues or your thoughts or your hurts or your grief starts coming through into your readings, and you're
Exactly.
actually transferring to that person what you're feeling instead of what's really truly for them. And I
Yeah.
see that a lot. And it's unfortunate that when people are studying to be mediums, or working on their psychic development, unless they're really studying to be a therapist, nobody
Yeah.
really addresses that. I think it's very, very important, because I think that's something that can ruin a good reading right there. Because instead of telling the person what's coming truly from spirit, that ego is stepping in, and you're
Yeah.
actually working out your own psychological psychodrama within
Exactly.
yourself, and it's coming out in the reading. And every time that happens, you're going to have a sitter that's going, no, 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 not
Exactly.
relating to what you're telling them.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And that's something I put over in my workshops and courses. It's no good giving readings if you're having a bad day yourself, or you're going through some traumatic experience. People, generally speaking, can't hide their feelings. And I've seen this lots of times with mediums who are professing to communicate with spirit, and they're actually bringing forward their own demons and imposing their feelings on the person they're working with. And it's a good point to make, because the general public don't understand this.
Step beyond the veil that separates our world from the world of spirits with me, Kalila Smith, as we uncover the mysteries of the afterlife. This is a spiritual journey as we try to discover if life really does continue after the physical death. Are after-death communications real, or do we imagine them? Get my book, Afterlife Mysteries Revealed, and find out. Afterlife Mysteries Revealed, available on Amazon.com by Kalila Smith.
The general public, I say the same about doctors. A nice person with a pleasant disposition does not constitute good mediumship. And a lot of people will gravitate towards a medium because, oh, she's lovely or he's lovely, and they feel comfortable with them. But the information they give is not necessarily genuine. So you have to be objective when you look for a medium, and not necessarily go towards the one who is a lovely person. Because I've known some horrific mediums in the old days, the older ones who are now long since gone. And some of them were really awful people. But the information, terrible. I've even known them to swear when they're giving a private consultation.
Oh,
So
my.
these are the older ones who've long since gone. But the definitions is the other thing, which I mentioned very briefly earlier on. People don't understand. They use mediumship as an umbrella term. It covers a lot of different skills, but things like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and clair anything else, they're all different aspects. And the one I found that's underestimated, that people seem to dismiss, is clairsentience. The ability,
Absolutely.
isn't it? Because people tend to think, well, how can you describe my father or brother or husband if you're only clairsentient? And clairsentience opens up a whole a portal to another world, and it can be quite specific, more so than clairaudience or clairvoyance. And I've known some brilliant clairsentient mediums who will say quite openly, I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. I just sense. But they can give a broad spectrum of information. I think it's brilliant.
I think it is too, as well. And I noticed in my own development over the years, I was always what one might call an empath. I would feel things, and I was very sensitive to others' emotions. And I was what you would consider clairsentient. I would feel things. I would sense things. I would experience things. And in the very, very beginning of my career doing paranormal work, I used to always have a second person with me who was clairvoyant. And they would actually work for me, as a kind of like a translator. I would tell them what I'm feeling, and they would tell me what it was, because sometimes I would feel things that I couldn't really interpret it. And I'm talking, decades ago. And then as gradually as I developed, and this is something people don't understand, and this is, I'm kind of a stickler for, people not being the weekend warrior. You cannot just take a class or two here or there and you're, a top medium, or a psychic for that matter. You cannot do it. This takes years of development, and there's a process to it, and everybody's got their own path. If Billy has attained his certain level of knowledge in 10 years, that doesn't mean you're going to do the same thing. You might take 12 years. You might take 20 years. And everything, it's a journey. Everybody's got a different process. And I noticed that as I grew older, as I became more seasoned with working with spirit, I eventually got to the point where one day I woke up and I was clairvoyant. I could see things.
Yeah.
And I had been clairaudient kind of on and off, kind of selectively. I can remember my 20s hearing my mother talk to me when someone was breaking in my apartment. Someone was breaking in my apartment. I was falling asleep, and I literally heard my mother, who was deceased. I heard her voice coming out of my closet telling me, "Don't go to sleep. Get up. Go to the front door." And I did, and someone was trying to break in, and I blocked the door. And when I would do psychic readings with the cards, I would hear someone in my left ear, always in my left ear, talking to me. Spirit would talk to me there. So I was somewhat clairaudient, and that has gotten much better over the years as well. But when that clairvoyance kicked in, that totally changed my way of relating to spirit and how I did readings.
Follow me, Kalila Smith, into the mysterious world of spirits. Searching for Spirits, the ultimate guide for ghost hunters, is a concise how-to manual for anyone who enjoys a good ghost hunt. Learn the history of spiritualism, learn what a ghost is and what is not, learn the truth about poltergeist. We'll also delve into the realm of spiritual beings that never were human, the world of demons, real vampires, and we'll look at some real case studies. This is a must-have for everyone interested in ghost hunting, from the novice to the expert. Completely updated in its second edition, this is one of the first guides for ghost hunting based on actual first-hand experiences. Available on Amazon.com. Searching for Spirits, the ultimate guide for ghost hunters, by Kalila Smith.
It's amazing the way it all transpires, though, isn't it? You've just said it's always in your left ear, and that's where my clairaudience comes, from the left side, because I'm deaf, 90% deaf in my left ear. Not that that's got anything to do with it. But the other thing people find difficult to believe, and I know this when I'm giving a talk sometimes, is the fact that clairaudience does not always appear as a voice. Doesn't always manifest as an audible voice. Sometimes it can be extraneous thoughts, a sequence stream of thoughts pouring through your mind, and they're not your thoughts. And these have a pattern to them. And development, I think, as you develop, you learn how to home into these thoughts, to isolate them and know that they're not your thoughts. And that's how it was with me as a kid. And also the other thing, clairvoyance, because what clairvoyance is to you and to another medium might not necessarily be to me, because we all see the color red or blue, but what I'm actually seeing might be different to what you're seeing. Right. But there is science, I mean, people, scientists who are really interested in the process of mediumship and all that stuff, have all concluded that there is an abnormality in the brains of mediums. And I mentioned in an earlier program that, autopsies were done on deceased. Obviously, they've got to be deceased, otherwise autopsies wouldn't take place.
Right.
And they found that the pineal gland was larger in these people, and it was surrounded by crystalline deposits. And I don't know whether people will remember me saying this, but because people are always asking me about their sons or daughters, but they found that the pineal gland is larger in a child than it is in an adult, and more developed in a female than it is in a male. And they concluded that women and children were more sensitive. Women are more sensitive than men. So effectively, women can develop mediumship quite easily if they've got a nucleus of it. So you can develop it easier than men can. I also, because it is a female thing, and it's to do with the hormonal system. So when you are developing, it doesn't matter who you are, providing there are no underlying psychological problems like manic depression or anything quite serious that you're being medicated for, because you shouldn't really be involved in the process of development unless you're supervised by an exceptionally trained medium. The hormones in the body do change, and people who are developing don't understand why. And you've probably experienced it yourself, because I have, why you get depressed sometimes. You get very melancholy, downhearted, for no apparent reason whatsoever. And that more than likely is to do with development. Because I was always told that in the spirit world, people who are looking after you, supervising your development, there are often doctors, deceased doctors, people who can help you, and they do experiments on you. They give you different feelings to see what you can work with and how they can work with you. And that brings me to spirit guides. I'm against guide worship. A lot of young mediums today will, I've got they'll say, I've got a monk or a nun or a big chief with a big headdress, and they'll be proud of the fact, which is, so you should be proud. But a lot of people worship the guides and pray to them. And I don't know, I'm against that sort of. I do have a conversation with mine, Tall Pine in particular, but worshipping them is a different thing altogether, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't recommend it at all. But people get misguided. And I think a lot of people, especially people that are new to just coming into this, they want to hurry up and get to a certain level and get there as quickly as they can. So they're kind of grasping at straws sometimes. And they start playing around. It's almost like they get misdirected and they kind of start going off in this other avenue. Because I've noticed that some mediums, long before they're very seasoned, will all of a sudden say that they're channeling a guide or they're channeling a higher master. And at that point, you are no longer doing mediumistic skills. You are doing something else. But you're definitely not doing mediumship at that point. Exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of people use their guides as an excuse. I've heard them many times using their spirit guide as an excuse why it didn't work or why it was such a bad demonstration. And even working in, Edgar Cayce, who was the sleeping prophet, because somnambulistic mediumship, somnambulism, is a form of mediumship that's quite easily developed in people who don't actually enter when they go to sleep. They don't actually fall into a deep sleep, but there are ways of developing trance mediumship in these people. They have lucid dreams. And I know I'm digressing a little bit, but this pandemic seems to have caused a lot of people to have very strange dreams, lucid dreams. And it's really strange. I know there seems to be some correlation with all the dreams people are having. And I'm wondering whether there's some kind of spiritual intervention, something taking place across the planet as a whole. Because I do believe the planet Earth is a living organism. She lives, she breathes. And I think it's probably had enough of what's been going on.
Yeah.
And I think the spirit world has never been closer, because I know I've said many times, it's not a place, it's a transcendental condition or state of being where these inhabitants live a very real life. But I think it's never been closer to the Earth, because it orbits within and around the physical atom, so it interpenetrates the Earth. But there seems to be a veil that's opened, and a lot of people are emailing me because they're having transcendental experiences, psychic experiences that they've never had before, and it's frightening them. And I think this is probably the reason, because of this pandemic. And it's a strange, strange feeling across the planet.
Yes.
Don't
I
you
think
agree?
there's definitely work being, oh, absolutely. Definitely some work going on the other side with people. I think people are, certain people are evolving. Some people need more work than others, obviously, but
Yeah.
everybody's on a different path. But yeah, I think that's definitely happening, because I've seen the same things with others. Now, I personally have not slept well since the pandemic. I'm very stressed out, so I never get into a deep enough sleep to even have dreams recently.
Yeah, you said
So, but that's interesting. That might be something we can address in the next show, because we're
yeah.
almost out of time at this point.
Oh,
So
when
it
you're
went
having
by
fun.
quick, didn't it?
Yeah, it did really, didn't it?
Yes. So we definitely have another topic or two that we can definitely do in the next couple of shows. In fact, for those listening, we do have a Facebook group now. So if you go to Facebook, get on your Facebook and look for Afterlife Radio Podcast Group, you can request to become a member. We are looking for your questions. Send us your questions. Send us your experience. If you're having dreams, if you feel you have mediumistic skills and you want to ask a question about it, or if you're just having some of these very strange lucid dreams, let's get some questions in here so that we can address it on the next show. And again, that is Afterlife Radio Podcast Group. And if you cannot find it, you can just simply go to my page, Kalila Smith, on Facebook, or just Afterlife on Facebook. And of course, Billy Roberts has his own page as well. That is Facebook/Billy Roberts. And we'll be happy to direct you to the group page. But I think it would be fascinating to look at what some of people's dreams are and see if there's any correlation if people are having the same dream. That would be very interesting, don't you think?
I think so. Brilliant.
All right. Well, Billy, this has been fabulous. This is the fastest hour I think we've ever gone through. Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate you guys listening, and we hope you listen in again. Have a wonderful afternoon and evening, and we will look forward to seeing you again on Afterlife Radio. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey.
Bye-bye.